a few minutes before the official time here. I won't start the official lecture till 10, but as I thought there might be some people showing up now, I just want to talk about the news in the intermediate time. This one was kind of fun. It's all cryptocurrency. What's that? Oh, stealing! Oh, yeah, the cops stealing, or principals stealing nude photos. That was somewhere in here. Yeah. So this is a high school, and the high school has a policy against cell phones. So they impound your cell phone, and while they've got it, the principal searches through it and steals the nude photos, and then posts them. So now he's going to prison for forever for child porn, because that's about the worst thing you can do. Every culture has their taboos, and child porn is like worse than murder, worse than rape. It's our thing. So whatever you do, don't do that. Anyway. Yeah, he put it on the internet. No, probably to trade. What most of them do, this is how cops catch them. Most of the pedophiles put up child porn pictures, and then they go to child porn forums to trade with other people.
But isn't that like darknet stuff? I mean,
it is. This guy apparently. Well, the cops have all infiltrated it. No, I don't think he wanted to hurt them. He shared them online, and yeah, anonymous image board based in Russia. They go find bulletproof hosting, typically in Russia, where nobody cares, and they put this stuff up that anybody else would take down. If you want to host something horrible like kiddie porn or active malware or stolen intellectual property or viruses or something, you have bulletproof hosting sites that charge more that will put it up, and they will not take it down no matter who complains. And they're in other countries typically, so they're outside most law enforcement. And that's where you put it, but they trade with other people up there. And of course, I know some of the FBI agents that are involved in dealing with this, and the point is the people that post this stuff, a lot of them are consumers, but some of them are producers, and they actually have a bunch of kids in cages in the basement that they're using to make this porn, and then they kill them. That's why it really is closely tied to an issue of slavery and murder. So that's why the cops are involved, and the people trade to try to get to the original sources, and it's actually pretty horrible what it leads to. But if you just trade the images themselves, you end up incurring a punishment, I think, intended for those other activities. Anyway, so that's what he did. The iced tea company got their stock to go up by a factor of 5 by just putting blockchain in their name and promising to, in addition to making iced tea, mine for Bitcoins. And now they've decided to just not bother mining for Bitcoins. So this, I must say, is one of the more gentler forms of fraud in the Bitcoin space. If you have anything to do with cryptocurrency, you're going to get ripped off. You'll find a much higher grade of people if you just sell drugs. It is just amazing. As far as I can tell, the number of cryptocurrency things that are complete direct scams is at least 99% and very close to 100%. It's now come out that the entire rise of Bitcoin from $300 to $20,000 last year was all fake. It was a fake price dump to steal money from suckers. And it worked. But they printed a fake cryptocurrency that is not worth $1. They bought the Bitcoin with that. They counted it on the exchange as someone buying it with $1. So the people that pumped it up to 20,000 were buying with fake money, and the people following them were buying with real money. This is how pyramid schemes work. You started off giving your initial people a position for free or for a low price, and then a whole bunch of suckers join in hoping to get rich, and they're the ones getting fleeced. And anyway, IOTA is another one. IOTA, like I say, I like the idea of IOTA, but because it's intended to make the Internet of Things work, but I was unable to make it work. I spent a week or two trying to install it about a year ago, and I didn't worry about it too much at the time, although every cryptocurrency I've tried, other than Bitcoin and Ethereum, when you actually try to install the software on the website, it does not work. and they are full of excuses. And so IOTA was new at that time, and I let it go by. This guy just tried again. He tried all the versions of software you can get. The stuff just totally doesn't work. The blockchain doesn't work. He said, this is all just complete fraud. It's never actually going to do any good for anybody, which is how most of them are. I know when Lisk came out, Lisk was supposed to be the #3 cryptocurrency. It came out with huge trumpeted fanfare about a year and a half ago. I got in it like the day before it came out, and nothing worked. The documentation had a front page PDF. When you click page 2, it wasn't there. When you download the source code, it wasn't there. It was just amazing. It was like a false front with like cardboard box of a business and nothing behind it, just to trick people into investing. And it was entertaining to me because when it came out, it had initial coin offering, and the price fell because within 3 hours of the initial coin offering, they found the security holes in the thing so bad that you could totally go right into someone else's wallet and steal the money. So everybody was on Reddit and forums doing this, and the price fell 100.00% in the first day of trading. There were headlines to this. Price falls 100.00%. That's an impressive title, and it's still out there, and there are still people saying it's wonderful and you should invest. But it's not #3. I think it's down around #50 or something. There are hundreds of these things, and either 99% or 100% of them are just scams. You'll do much better in Vegas or any other activity as an investment, unless you start your own scam, which is what they all do. Not your own currency. I was amazed. Vitalik Buterin, who started Ethereum, actually proposed that you should mine Bitcoin using quantum computers, but since quantum computers don't exist, you should use normal computers to simulate quantum computers. And he actually said, this will be as fast as a quantum computer and make us all rich. And he actually solicited money from people to invest in that scheme. And that just shows either complete failure to understand anything about computers or logic, because simulating something is not any faster than the real hardware you're using, or complete willingness to just lie to suck in suckers, and probably both. Anyway, it's so Lenovo has a bunch of ridiculous flaws. They've got a hard-coded password that lets you in their devices, and a variety of other flaws. They've had quite a few patches came out today. Anyway, we're up to 10 minutes after. Let me just talk a bit about deadlines and such. I've had a couple questions. So we're here in 123. So today, project 3 and 4 is due, and the quiz was due before class. The projects are not late until after midnight. The quizzes are due before the start of class, just so I don't have people trying to take quizzes during class. That was my only motivation for that. And if you turn in things late, they're still worth something. You lose 5 points for late projects and 2 points for late quizzes. So do them even if you're late. And if you need help, I'll be up in the lab later today, although on Saturdays, I sometimes don't make it there until after the second class. But there are people up there that can help you. And we now actually have tutors on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and we will soon have online tutors, probably next week. So the green is the tutor, and there's often people there that can help you. So if you're stuck, go to the lab, and people can help you. And in fact, there'll be the hacking club here at noon, and those people can help you do these projects too. Most people just need simple things like they can't figure out how to launch their virtual machine or connect it to the internet or something. And everybody that's been in a couple of classes around here can help you do that, because that's a hurdle everybody had to get over in their first class, is how to get virtual machines running properly, which is kind of annoying. They're kind of buggy, and you have to get used to like the first 5 troubleshooting steps for a virtual machine. Are there any questions about anything? What's that?
I mean the project.
What about it?
The project.
What about it?
I cannot obviously run the fun.exe on my Windows server virtual machine.
Right. Well, we'll show it to me or someone else up in the lab. We'll take a look at it. You should be, if you make fun.exe, it should run on any machine, because Windows is very forgiving. So whether it's 32 or 64, but we'll take a look. If the fun won't run, then maybe something's wrong with the hosting and you're getting an empty file. There's a variety of things that can go wrong. Good. Any others? Well, let's start the next chapter then, which is here. So footprinting and social engineering, what we're doing is going through the modern steps of hacking. So people have tried to make hacking sort of scientific by breaking it up into 6 or 7 steps. And the Certified Ethical Hacker exam works that way. And your textbook is just following the same procedure. So you start outside the company doing research from the outside, and then you gradually penetrate more and more. So here, this is footprinting, which is observing a company from the outside without attacking their servers directly, doing things like reading news articles about it, their website, and so on. And than a bit of social engineering. So the point here is to find the weaknesses in the system. There's a fundamental rule which really makes a lot of sense. Computer technicians typically start out as gamers, so they want to do the fun part, and they don't enjoy doing the boring part. And this happens over and over and over. Like, most coders will not write documentation because it's really boring. Most programmers will not bother planning their software first. They will just read the question and start typing on the keyboard, and then they'll be sorry. And the same thing's true of pen testers. They'll just try to jump and attack a box. And in all cases, that is your first mistake. Before you do anything, plan it first. You'll be glad. Professional coders are distinct from amateur coders by the time they spend preparing. A professional coder spends 80% of their time planning the software, drawing diagrams. Before they write any code, they decide, we're going to have this module do this bit, it'll pass over here, this module will do this bit, here's how the data will flow. Because if you start coding, you will almost always discover that there's something you did not think of that means everything you're doing is wasting your time, because some other part of it is different than your first thought, and what you're doing is not going to work. So it's anyway, so before pen testers start, they do a lot. If you want to do a good job, you research the company from the outside before you attack anything, because you have to figure out what's going on there. And also, if you're doing a pen test for a company, you have to learn what they do and what matters to them, because everybody has a ton of vulnerabilities. Like Lenovo just passed 3, Microsoft has patches every month, and Microsoft knows hundreds of bugs in Windows that they have not fixed. This is not because they're lazy and evil. It is because you can never fix all the problems in the world. You can never fix all the doors. You can never fix all the problems of your employees. There's no perfection anywhere. So you have to decide which problems are worth fixing and which problems are okay to ignore for right now. And so you can't guide the company into doing the right thing unless you understand their business and what matters to them. If you find some vulnerability scanner that says there's a problem with this software product, they very well might not care, because the way they're using that software product, it might not really matter. That might not be connected to anything really important at the company, but something over on the side. There might be another layer of defense behind it that prevents any real attack coming in through there. And so they really don't care if that one product has a flaw. You got to find the one that really matters, that will really let you do the bad thing. Like if it's a retail shop like Amazon, obviously they do not want you to be able to order products without paying for them, or steal other people's products out of their outbox and redirect it to your address and things like that. If you find something like that, they will be very excited about fixing it. If you find something else that technically isn't correct, they really don't care. Like I years ago thought I might go to the wall sheet and do this. If you go to Amazon, they have some unencrypted cookies, at least they used to. And so your identity, your name but not your password, is sent in plain text all the time you're shopping. So you can see who's shopping at Amazon on a network by sniffing the network. And I thought that was pretty bad, but then when I looked into it in more detail, it only applied to targeting ads, and you could not actually buy products with any of those cookies. And I realized this is not that they're stupid, they have made a strategic decision. The kind of information that leaks is not really critical to their business. It's a little sloppy, like the New York Times, which broadcasts the headlines of all the articles you've been reading in plain text every time you go there, which is a little sloppy and a little rude, but it's not really a major danger to their business. Anyway, that's the game here. So from the outside, you look around, there are a lot of tools that will let you find out what's happening in a company. Just Googling it will help. Going to the company IP address will tell you a lot. And there are some other tools like Web Data Extractor and FOCA that try to automate this process. Dig is very useful in the command line at Linux and the Mac to do DNS transfers, which we'll play with here. And then there's Maltego, which I've never gotten any good out of, but some people think it's wonderful. There are books in open source intelligence. Maltego tries to automatically draw the diagram. If you've seen like cop and detective shows, they have this wall where they put pictures of all the suspects and pictures of the murder weapon and pictures of the location. And they have these strings. This person is connected to that person, and that person is connected to that person. And that's how they untangle the conspiracy. And Maltego tries to do that electronically, automatically by scanning the web. So anyway, there are different ways to look at this. One way to look at it is competitive intelligence. When I started with at the escrow agency, I was answering the telephone, answering questions from claimants about a lawsuit. And one thing I learned very quickly is that a lot of the phone calls we were getting were in fact from other companies in the same business, calling to see what we were doing. And a lot of them were from the lawyers on our team calling to see if we were saying the correct thing, which is reasonable. So that's competitive intelligence. You do watch what your competitor's doing, how much they're charging, and you plan your business, how to compete with them. So that's an issue. Therefore, companies have a certain degree of operational security. They would probably not like to reveal some of their internal policies, partly just to maintain a competitive edge, and of course, partly to conceal the parts that won't look good. Apple is probably the most extreme case. Apple is much more secure and ruthless than, say, the CIA or the NSA. They fire people. You're nuts if anything leaks out of Apple. You have to keep everything a secret. And when the first Apple virus came out about 4 years ago, it came out because Apple blocked a PDF reader update. They didn't want people getting irritated by all these update warnings, so they bundled it in with other updates, and they blocked it for 6 weeks. So for 6 weeks, you could not update the PDF reader on an Apple. And not updating is the worst thing you can possibly do in security. So there was a PDF virus that started spreading among the Macs, and Apple sent a memo to their tech support people saying, if someone calls you on the phone and describes this problem to you, tell them that is impossible. There is no malware. Do not agree in any way that there's any malware. Just hang up on them. We will not accept any suggestion that there are viruses on the Mac, because their sales team at that point had the big selling point, no viruses on the Mac. And they thought they could just lie and cover it up. But that memo leaked, and that led to a public outcry. So, there's things inside a company, for better or worse, that people try to conceal for a period of time. The website is, of course, very good to tell you what's going on at the company. It is useful both because it's all full of useful information, like the names and email addresses of the technician and information about what software and hardware they're using, but you can also analyze it technically to find out how they're operating. And we're doing this in the securing websites class. So Burp is the main tool for this. There are other amateur tools like Foxy Proxy and Hackbar in Firefox, but Burp is what the pros use. So let's play a little bit with Burp, and you'll be using it in this class. There's a tool that developers use that does the same thing. Name I forget, but Burp is what hackers use. Burp is intended to hack into websites. It is Java-based software, so it runs equally badly on all platforms. And so I had a student just the other night who was using Burp. Next day it doesn't work. You have to take it off and reinstall it. You get used to this with Java. Java is always full of bugs, but it's the same on every platform. And that saves so much money that everybody puts up with its fantastically slow and buggy behavior. So Burp is a proxy, and by default, intercept is off now, which is wonderful. Used to be intercept everything and block it. So by default, it is listening on 127.0.0.1.80.80. That means I have a listening process, and if I go to my Mac's command line, let me make this big, you can see it. If you do netstat -an pipe more, okay, we'll show you the connections on your machine, and here it is listening on port 8080. So now I have a process on my machine that is listening for network traffic on the loopback address. This sounds kind of stupid and crazy, where you're using a network connection to come back to the same machine, but a lot of software works this way. It just turns out to be the most convenient way to write software. So now, if I open Firefox, I like to choose a browser that I don't normally like to use for other purposes for this, because the browser you configure for proxies is inconvenient to use for other things. So I like to pick one I don't love. And so I'm looking for settings. Here are preferences. They change the name and move it around because everybody in technology has ADD. All right, so no proxy. This is the way your browser normally is. No proxy means it connects directly to the internet. So now if you go to like samsclass.info, you see it because it's sending that traffic directly out the internet card. And that's fine, but now we want to capture the traffic in the middle. So you go to the proxy settings, which are preferences, and I put proxy here, okay. And you tell it to go to 127.0.0.1 on port 8080, which is the default. That's what Burp is using, and I'm gonna use that server for all protocols. So now when I say okay, now if I go to an insecure website like bing.com, it loads a little more slowly, but it loads, but it's now not loading directly from the internet. It's loading through Burp. And if you go to HTTP history, you'll see a bunch of requests for Burp here. Here's the request that gets the root of the page. This gets something called success. Here's more getting this and this. Every web page loads in a bunch of pieces. You load the main page, you often get a redirect, then you load the HTML, then you load the CSS, the JavaScript, the images, and it may take many requests to build a web page. And now we can see all the requests go by. That's for an insecure site. Now, if you go to a secure site like mine, samsclass.info, it's going to warn you. You are not okay going to this website. The owner of this site has configured their website improperly. Well, that's one way to look at it. But the fact is we are under a man-in-the-middle attack. Burp is intercepting the traffic. Now, normal HTTP is unencrypted and insecure, which means if you go to like google.com and it's not HTTPS, which Google no longer allows you to do, but they used to, Bing allows you to do that. If I type in bing.com and go to Bing, I could be seeing a fake Bing. I would never know. I could put up a server, I could intercept your request, redirect it to the wrong machine, so you're seeing the wrong website, but I can make it look like Bing, and there is no way for you to tell. Your browser has no way to tell because it doesn't come with any authentication. So, and you do this in the projects, you can do it with ARP poisoning, DNS poisoning, you can do it with BGP hijacking on the global internet and infect the whole world, and China does it frequently. You can do any of these things. My parents were in the generation before telephones, and I remember this. They said when telephones came out, everybody freaked out. Wait a minute, you don't know who that is on the other end of that line. How do you know that's really the person you think you're talking to? That could be some kind of crook. And in fact, it totally could. Now, you get used to recognizing a voice over the telephone, but on the internet, you don't have that. So if you go to a website and it's not HTTPS, you have no way to know if that's the real website or fake one. And when you log in, you have no idea who you just sent your password to. Could have been anybody. This is the #1 way to break into everybody's accounts everywhere is phishing. Send you an email, get you to click on the link, go to a website that's not really Facebook, and give you your password. So anyway, HTTPS websites come with an identity certificate, and your browser checks it, and so it knows it's lying. The owner, this site uses HSTS, so I can go here to advanced, and I can sometimes approve it. It looks like I'm not going to be able to do it here, but let's see if I can find some website where I can add the certificate. This one, Sam's Class, add exception. See, I can tell it that I want to allow this by confirming a security exception. Now, if I get the certificate, it's going to tell me, if I view the certificate, that what has happened here is some company named Portswigger is telling me that they own samsclass.info. And they know that that is not true because Portswigger is the people that made Burp. And they are not a trusted certificate authority. What Burp does is it makes a fake certificate for every secure website with the wrong encryption key. So you can send it encrypted data and it has the key to decrypt it. Then it will re-encrypt it and send it to the server. Your browser will warn you, this is not right. If you are doing a test of your software and you want to allow this, you can add this exception, and now I'm telling this browser to trust Portswigger. And now I can view my website. I'm viewing a secure website over HTTPS, and if you go here and look, you'll see it's now doing samsclass.info HTTPS requests and responses right through the proxy, and I can see them. So this is because I told it to believe this thing is lying to it. That's why if you see those warnings, they might very well mean something. And you'll be doing this attack yourself in several of the projects, SSL strip and so on. There's a bunch of ways to intercept traffic, and most of them, the viewer will get a warning box, but 99% of viewers cannot understand the warning box, and they'll just swat it out of the way like a fly and keep going. And that's why Microsoft led the charge to make the warnings really obvious. Microsoft started this thing where the whole page is gone. There's just a big screaming red page saying, no, don't go here. They found out that will actually scare people away. Some box that pops up and says, blah, 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 there's a technical error. Everyone just closes that and keeps going because they don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, all right, so now that's what a proxy does. And now that you can view the traffic, you can watch how the website loads, and you can even mess with it. So the history will show you a website loading with the requests. And if you go to a secure site, it will warn you that somebody is intercepting your traffic, and that is not okay. And then you can analyze the traffic. So let's analyze Stitcher. I did this in another class recently. It's kind of a good demonstration. Stitcher is an Android app. Android apps are amazing garbage. They have no security standards at all, as far as I can tell, and the developers have no idea what they're doing. People just get outsourced companies to write the cheapest app possible and run them with no security. I found serious security flaws in the West Point app, in the US Naval college. In just hundreds of apps, I've reported vulnerabilities, and almost nobody ever cares. But several major financial apps, you know, they're just amazingly bad because the end user has no way to see what's going on. If you're in a browser, so here I am in an Android cell phone being simulated. This is awesome, a free simulator. And we have an Android hacking class here, mobile device hacking, not this semester, but coming up in a later semester where we play with this stuff. You can take your whole cell phone and send it through the proxy. So I've got a proxy here, Burp, in this, yeah.
What's the Android simulator?
It's Genymotion is by far the best. There are other ones, and they're really slow and horrible. Genymotion is free and wonderful. Yeah, it's here, G-E-N-Y Motion. That is awesome. It has a pay version I never used, but the free version is wonderful. There are other ones that will just run so slowly you'll want to cry. Genymotion actually moves. So I have to start my proxy listing on a real address, which is this, 147.144.210.206, and I can tell my whole cell phone to go through that proxy. So let's go here and go to network settings. And in here I've got modify network, manual. And down here I can specify that address, which is 147.144.210 and 206. So I'm telling it to send traffic through Burp from my phone. And so if I open, say, the browser, and I try to go to a secure site, it's going to again warn me that this is not okay. Now, I can install the certificate, and there are various ways to do it, but the way I like to do it is this way. Export the certificate. You can do it from Burp. So this is the issue with Burp. Burp knows the HTTPS is going to give you a warning. So if you are developing a website, what you ought to do is use HTTPS, and then on your test system, install the certificate. And then when your real customers use it, that's not installed, so they're protected from man-in-the-middle attacks. An enormous number of developers do not do this. What they do is comment out the code that verifies certificates. So their app will accept any certificate and test it that way, and then forget to remove that when they sell the real app. Something like 15% of apps I've tested will accept the wrong certificate in their native condition. It's one of the more common and very serious security flaws in the world of Android. Anyway, I export the certificate in the DER format. That's just the format it expects. And you have to put it on my desktop. I'm going to call it burp2.sir. For some reason, it only works if you give it a CER extension to put it on Android. Okay, it was exported. So now there should be a file. There it is. This is the certificate. And I just drag that and drop it on the phone. It says it's now copied it. Now I can import that certificate here by going to security. Whoops, back I say. Security is in here somewhere. There it is, security. And down here, there are trusted credentials, install certificate. Install Burp2, that's right. So now I've told it to trust Burp. This is the same thing we did inside Firefox the other way. And now I should be able to open secure websites and it won't complain. So I can open this, yep, now it's offering me to log in and so on. That's the browser. So I should see some traffic here having to do with the browser. And here it is, Android client secure traffic is now passing through Burp. So I'm going to clear all this old traffic, clear history. And now I'm going to look at this glorious app called Stitcher. This is a company that lets you play music on your phone. Apparently they're quite popular, and I've been picking on them for years now because they're entertaining security flaws. So if you log in here, you can put in an email like a@b.com, and you can have a password. So if I put in a password of PASSWORD, and I log in, it's going to tell me that's not a good password, which means it had to send that password up to the server. So how did it send that password up to the server? That's the question. There is a request here called a GET for check authentication. And down here it shows the raw request, but all I care about is the parameters. Now, I don't know how to blow this up for the remote viewers, but I can blow it up in the classroom here. Here you can see this parameter, EPX, is 3W2X, 3Z, 3Z, 33. So that appears to be some kind of encrypted password. Now, to be fair, when I started, this is the only encryption method Stitcher used, and I reported it to them and complained and demonstrated it at DEF CON and spent like a couple of years humiliating them until they finally updated. So now this is actually sent over HTTPS. which means there is a layer of good encryption. And this second layer is not needed. So Stitcher is no longer really vulnerable. But it is interesting to see this encryption they used to use. That is something they call encryption. And if you use a short password like A and send it, then you can see in Burp what's actually set up. And that is here. If you send an A, the password is 2x. So it gets really short, which is a bad sign. So let's try B and C. And then you'll see the glory of Stitcher's encryption. B, the password B is sent to the server in secure form as 2Y. You may be beginning to notice a pattern. The password C is sent to the server. There you go, 2Z. This is reverse engineering in glory. Okay, and if you were to repeat a letter, let's go for gold and try the complex password ABC and see what that is. ABC is sent to the server as 2x, 2y, 2z. So you've now broken Stitcher's proprietary encryption, which protected their product all the way along. By the way, another product that is even stupider than this is Microsoft Internet Explorer. Microsoft Internet Explorer saves your favorites in the registries, and to protect your privacy, it encrypts them with ROT13, which is a system too simple to use in the Sunday newspaper. It is simpler than the Captain Crunch decoder ring when I was a kid. It moves everything forward 13 characters in the alphabet. It is amazing how people use these horrible routines because they just don't know anything about encryption. Anyway, so Stitcher eventually did add HTTPS, which covers a multitude of sins. That's real encryption that's hard to break. And then if you do some stupid stuff inside it, it doesn't really matter. But anyway, that's one of the things you can get from Proxy. You want to examine the network traffic, and then you can see what apps are really doing, and especially cell phone apps. The viewer has no way to see the traffic. So if you look at the traffic, you will find what you will get used to in the world of security. If people cannot test something, it is probably bogus. You may remember these little USB sticks everybody gets. There was a survey of top executives about 6 years ago, and they found that the average corporate executive owns 20 USB sticks and has lost 15 of them. And I'm certainly in that category. I left a whole bag the last time I went to a convention, it's gone. I've lost tons of those things. And they're all full of proprietary company data. So companies began to realize this is really not good. I think one thing that affected them was when Air Force Two's Obama's helicopter plans were found being sold in a CD on the streets of Iraq, because they had leaked out by this kind of thing. People said, you know, you shouldn't just be dropping secrets all over the place on these stupid thumb drives. So a market appeared for secure thumb drives. So suddenly, for like an extra 10 or 20 bucks, you could buy a secure encrypted thumb drive. And the first generation of those were not encrypted. All they did was when you plug them in a Windows machine, a box would come up asking you for a password, and it wouldn't let you see the files until you put in the password. But if you put it in a Linux machine, you could just see the data, because they didn't actually encrypt it. They just put a password in front of it, which, by the way, does offer some security. If your attacker is so dumb, all they know is to plug it in a Windows machine, it will stop them. This is called deterrence, not prevention. But they sold them as encrypted, and they weren't encrypted. One exception being IronKey. IronKey charged a lot more, and they're a reputable company, and they said not only is it encrypted, it's also really tough, and you can drive it over with a tank and dump it in a fish bowl, and nothing bad will happen. And they really encrypted it, and it cost more. So, but this is the case. Whenever anybody sells you a security product and you cannot test it, it is very likely bogus, just like cryptocurrencies. So anyway, so you install the certificate, then you can examine man-in-the-middle attacks. You can modify requests on the way out to see what happens, and you can run a spider that will try to find every page on a site by clicking every link. And some proxies even have vulnerability scanners where they will try a whole bunch of memorized attacks to see if they work and tell you if it has any known vulnerabilities. Z-Attack Proxy is a free one from OWASP. OWASP is a very good organization. The Open Web Application Security Platform or something. It's a club that everybody joins. Every company's in it. My students and I, about 6 years ago, went to the RSA convention, the biggest one in San Francisco, and we staffed the OWASP booth. Like 3 of us sat there, and we were supposed to be recruiting for members for OWASP, but everybody came by and they were already members. I love OWASP. They're all in the group. It was great. They were all happy. I took a couple netbooks and demonstrated an OWASP training project, and we were fine except the guy that wrote the thing came by and got mad at us for not having suits. because you're supposed to have suits at RSA. We were there in flip-flops and t-shirts. But anyway, so Tamper Data is another plugin that lets you do this. Chrome Developer Tools lets you view traffic inside the browser, and it helps you examine web pages. And Chrome Developer Tools will also show you the time it takes to load each item and draw a little graphical timeline. And that's important for people who want to diagnose website problems, where why is it loading slowly, which component is holding me up, which is a common problem of web developers. Whois is another commonly used tool. You get this free with your internet service. You can do it at a variety of websites, but you can also do it from the command line. So if I go here, if I have some website that I'm suspicious of, like samsclass.info, I can type who is this guy anyway. Just type who is any domain name, and it will tell you, it will access some registry, and it will tell you who owns that website. And it tells you it's owned by someone called 1&1 Internet in Pennsylvania. And up here it tells you me, my real name, my real address, because I registered it with my real name, real address, and phone number. And this is what you should do if you're a legitimate company. Like if anybody has something to say about my website, I want to hear it. If they tell me someone hacked your website and it's all covered with porn, I would like to know that. They tell me you just put up something stolen and it's illegal, I would sure like to know about that. You know, I'm not going to hide. It's not bulletproof hosting. I'm not doing anything secret. So if you're a legitimate company, you put good information here, but it's never verified. So you can put up here Donald Duck or George Bush or anything you want, and it won't be verified. And the dodgier websites do just have fake information up here. But legitimate websites have real information up there, and it should lead you to a real person who is currently the network webmaster or security administrator at the company, and it'll give you the real name and address and phone number. Yeah.
Some of the Whois websites I've seen is it does have, say, like a name and an address, but it's not as actual text. It's as an image of the text, so it can't be, you try to spider it, it doesn't work.
Yes, that's a common thing people do. They put up an image for an email address so humans can see it, and they're trying to stop bots from finding it who make lists of email addresses they find on the web to send spam. I'm not sure how effective that is, but it is a common trick to avoid just printing out an email address. I just put mine out, and then I get a lot of spam, and I block it with Gmail's spam filter, and it's all right, but some people really fight spam in various ways. Anyway, you can then use the host command as another one, unless you do a DNS lookup. Here's MIT's Whois. Tells you someone named Jeffrey Schiller was the tech at MIT responsible for this when I did this a few years ago. Every company with a website has some Whois information, and it's often accurate. It should be accurate if you're a legitimate company and you want to hear complaints. Like if anybody has something to say, I want to hear it. I'm not planning to escape next year, so sooner or later I'm going to hear it. I might as well hear it quickly and deal with it. Spade is a GUI tool that's been around for a long time, mainly just for people. There's certain people that get really, really mad about spam email, and they print out the raw version of spam with all the headers, and then they want to try to figure out who's sending them a spam and somehow punish them. This is kind of madness. I recommend not doing this because you'll put a lot of effort in and probably never find them. But anyway, that was the motivation for Spade. It was a tool that would help you research email headers and other things to try to figure out who is sending you stuff. Maltego, I mentioned before, it draws these graphs of websites and companies and people and how they're connected. And I never get any good out of it. If you run this on me, it will do you no good at all because of my news page I showed you earlier. I have hundreds of news links every week, and I've done that for years. So I'm connected to every company everywhere. Like, I mean, one thing, I get these automated complaints and complaints from students that go to my page and they say, somewhere in the hundreds of links at the bottom, there's a link that goes to malware or some offensive site because somebody moved it. And I said, yeah, there probably is. Studies show that if you save links, 10% of them will go bad every year. They will stop working. And some of them will then be bought by someone else, and now they point to something bad. That's why I'm glad I teach adults. You know, my website is not particularly sanitary. It's often referring to hacking tools and crime, and then the older classes are pointing to weird stuff because things have changed. So, you know, it's not any safer than the rest of the internet. So anyway, Maltego will analyze people and try to connect them. If you get email addresses, you can now predict email addresses of most companies. Most companies use a simple system, like City College uses the first letter of your first name and the first 6 letters of your last name, and then a number, and then at mail.ccsf.edu for students, and a similar system for teachers. So you can pretty quickly figure out what someone's email address is, and then you can send them email, or more entertainingly, you can send email to someone else pretending to come from them, and that will often fool people. I'm the CEO, you better change the password. That's how they hacked into companies pretty often. So we should talk about how HTTP works. HTTP is what makes the web work, and it is designed to be fast and efficient and to run. It was designed long ago when computers were very slow and very weak and networks were very slow. So it is designed to have the minimum overhead to make a request and give you an answer. So if an HTTP request goes to a server, let me just do some here as an example. I bet Bing will fall for this. I haven't tried Bing. If I do, if you want to do direct networking in Linux or the Mac, you can do it with Netcat. So Bing, I can do Netcat to www.bing.com on port 80. Now that will send a connection. Now I've now done a TCP handshake, SYN, SYNAC, ACK. I can now send data to Bing. So let's get the root page with version HTTP 1.1, which is what almost everybody's using, and the host will be www.bing.com. And you end this request with 2 enters. And it worked. That is a legitimate request. And here's the contents of the Bing website, which is page after page of what looks like JavaScript and stuff. So the Bing website, now if you, that's what your browser does. If I go here, let's go to Chrome, just a plain old website, and type in bing.com. That's what your browser does. It sends a request and it gets all that text, and the text appears here. View, where is it? View developer source. It fetched all that source code. This is all that code. And then it ran the code and fetched all the other stuff, and it built this page, and it all happened pretty fast. So it ran the scripts. It figured out the script said it should put this letter here and make it big. Then it figured out it should fetch this image. Then it figured out it should fetch that image. And after a bunch of requests, it constructed this page. But I did it here myself in a text-only mode, so all I got was the first thing, which is all this code. Here's something about the background image for an arrow, and on it goes. All this text adds up to Bing. So let's try playing some games. So I now know how to send a request myself outside the browser. So I could send head/http 1.1 host www.bing.com, enter, enter. And now I get just the header. This is the part that does not appear in your browser. And it's much shorter, so it's good to demonstrate. So this is a complete HTTP request using the head method. The first thing is called the verb or the method. And there are only about half a dozen methods ever used, the most common one being get. Get just gets a page, and that's usually what you want. So now head gives me the header, and here's the header that Bing provides. This is, every website responds to a request with a header, which your browser does not show, and then after the header comes the content of the page, images and scripts and stuff. And here's the header. It tells me, here's some cookies. These cookies are stored on my machine, so Microsoft knows who I am if I come back later. It puts a bunch of cookies on it, just so if you make a further request to Bing, it knows who you are. These are used to target ads mostly, and if you log in, they're used to remember who you are, so they can show you your email and not somebody else's email. And then a few other things are set here, like the date. Notice they don't bother telling me anything about the server, which is probably a good idea. Anyway, so that's the head request. I could also send an options request. /http/1.1 site bing.com. And if they honor that, it will, okay, now this is a bad request. They don't like it. I think it's because of that missing space. Let's try it again. But I wanted to point out the content flag. If it works, you get a 200 OK. That's called a status code. The whole point of HTTP is it saves memory and time on the server. So you send one request, you get one answer, and the server is now done with you. It does not remember anything. You send another request, you get an answer. It doesn't have to try to keep in memory who's connected or anything. That would be too much work. So it handles you with this response. 200, okay, I'm done with you, here's your page. This one said 400 bad requests. I didn't understand you, get lost, I'm now done with you. It's always done with you after one exchange, so it doesn't have to remember you, so the same server can serve thousands of people per second without running out of memory. So let's see if I can fix that request. It was options/http/1.1 host:/bing.com. Yeah, now it was right. Okay, so now it sent me a whole page of junk. And rather than scroll through it, I'm going to go here and do it again and pipe it through more. So options, oops, got to spell it right. Options, HTTP 1.1 host.
He's the one that typing that?
Yes.
Bing,
Like a smart
Bing.
motherfucker, man.
.com.
Now you went.
All right, I'm going to host again, aren't I? There, just try to stop. Okay, I'm going to have to scroll back. I was hoping to pipe it through more, but I would have had to do that before, back when I did the netcat. Anyway, I'm hoping I can find the response here before all this garbage. And I don't know why it sent me a web page in response to an options request. What it should have done is told me what methods are available. So anyway, this is too irritating. Let me just go back to my slides. That's how you do it. And so there are various responses. 404 is what happens if you try to get a web page that's not there. 500 if you send something a script cannot process. 200 if everything's okay. There are a lot of these methods out there. So get is the simplest method. That will get the base page. The slash here is the name of the page. So if you don't tell it what page you want, it gives you the default page. If you want, you can also have a folder name and a file name there to get a specific page. So get, you're seeing head and options. Those are the ones I tried. Get is the normal one your browser does to get a page. The main other one you use a lot is post. When you're logging in or shopping and sending up data like credit card numbers and passwords, you should be doing it with post. Post sends a request like get, and then it follows it with some data. And if you don't send it over HTTPS, it's sent without encryption, and that's not safe, and browsers are now warning you when that happens. It's now becoming unfashionable. Pretty soon, Chrome is going to flag every non-HTTPS page as insecure, which is really nice, and it should have happened about 20 years ago. Because especially, it would be nice if your cell phone would warn you, because your cell phone doesn't tell you at all whether the connections are secure. And I can tell you from analyzing Android apps for years, a lot of them are not. And people do not understand. I found a whole bunch of medical apps where you make appointments with your doctor and send them information about your symptoms, and it sends all that data unencrypted over the internet. And I told the companies, and they all said, we don't care, we're not going to fix it, because the current state of law in America does not require us to encrypt that data, so get lost. And I said, you know, I feel like you should encrypt it even if the law doesn't require it right now, but they were not interested in my opinion. Yeah. iPad is much better because Apple has strict policies and they punish you for violating them. So it is less common that stuff goes without encryption on the iPad, although it does happen sometimes.
See,
Android is a free ecosystem. Google does not really police it at all. And they try to keep the malware out of the store, but they use a very weak system that doesn't catch the malware. And there was another scandal just last week, another multi-million downloads of malware from the Google Play Store. And a lot of people use unauthorized sources for Android apps anyway, especially in China, where the Great Firewall blocks access to Google and the Google Play Store. You have to go to unauthorized repositories, and those are, of course, all full of malware. So Android is much less safe in practice to use. If you use an Android phone, you should put antivirus on it. There are at least 10 brands of it. There's many free brands. There's McAfee and Kaspersky and Blue Box. And you need it because there's a lot of Android viruses. It's the most dangerous system after Windows. As a couple of years ago, there were numbers. These are good numbers to know. There are 100 million Windows viruses. There are 1 million Android viruses. There are 100 Mac viruses. And there are 0 iPhone viruses. If you have an iPhone or an iPad, you don't need to worry about security at all. It is almost impossible for any kind of malware to get on the device. The only remaining security threat is social engineering, where humans trick you and your computer can't save you from that. But the platform itself is clean, not because it is a superior platform, but because it is locked down. You cannot put on any app that doesn't come from the Apple Store, and Apple examines those apps carefully, and they won't let you put any app in the store without proving who you really are. And if you put in junk, they will ban you forever, and you can never make money selling apps again. And that punishment is so severe that it does, in fact, stop people from doing it. A few people did it. A few security researchers tried putting malware in the Apple Store to see what Apple would do, and Apple bans you forever. They're not kidding. So it's really bad for your business, so people really don't do it, and your iPhone is quite safe to use. So there's what options should have done. It should show me what methods are allowed on the server. So this server lets me use post, options, get, and head, and the Microsoft server should have told me that, but I don't know if it really did. They gave me too long an answer. Here's what the get does. Gives you 200 OK. It puts the header, which tells you information about the server, and then it has the contents of the page, which in this case is an HTML page. So I got a few cahoots about that stuff.
Watch this.
This is 123, so if I go to Kahoot and log in and go here and search for 123, I should be able to find something called Chapter 4A. There we are. Good. All right.
How you do this?
Start it and play the glorious Kahoot music. Okay. Good. We're right on time. That's one thing about teaching the same class for a long time. You learn how long things take. Anyway.
704 7. You can answer his question. Can you put your name in there? Oh, my name. PARR.
And record the winner.
All the people in the class now are going to give a quiz on all the shit he just covered. This shit's hard. See, you're in. It's how I get quiz.
Good.
Yes, right now that's him.
Now, I should have muted these guys before. I'll mute them now. But I guess they would have reminded me. I see a chat message. Mute people. Okay, now I finally muted them. Sorry. I forgot to do that earlier. That's a problem with Kahoot. The people annoy one another by talking, and I don't always know. Okay. Well, anyway, such is life. As you know, you can avoid driving in, but then the system, I'm using amateur projection techniques, so it's not so great. The classes I put in MUB 388 are actually streamed by a professional who knows what he's doing. And of course, the quality is much better. All right, I think maybe I have enough people. We wait another 10 seconds. Okay, looks like we got everybody. So, 5 questions. Okay, what tool will find every page on a website? Okay, that's a spider. It's not perfect, but it finds every page that's linked from another page, which is a pretty good approximation to every page. All right, what tool will show you the timeline of the requests?
That's mine.
Well, I'll try muting them later. At least right now, sound doesn't really.
All right, bud, take it easy. Oh, somebody's hot. Oh.
All right, that's Chrome Developer Tools. Let me try muting these guys again. All right, so good. All right, what tool gives you the name and the address of the administrator? Okay, who is? All right. What method is used for normal web browsing? Okay, that's get. That's mostly what you do. You're just looking at a web page, getting all the pieces to look at them. All right. What status code comes down when the request succeeds? Which is, of course, the most common situation. All right, 200, otherwise known as OK. All right, so let's take a break until 10 after 11. Give me 10 minutes. I'll record these winners. They're going to have to tell me who they are, except for Eli, who has something that looks pretty close to a real name there. But Forrest and Muted will have to tell me who they are to get their points. All right. Get her. Yeah. What's up? Oh, I'm going to stop. Oh, let me just see if I got a chat here. I should stop this for recording. Forrest. Okay, good. I got Forrest's name, and I'm going to stop the Zoom session for 10 minutes.